गुरुभ्यो नमः शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं सदर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्ते वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय कोटिसूर्यसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा यश्चिद्वग्द्राद्या पारिषद्या परस्सदं विघ्नं निघ्नति सततं विश्वक्षेणं तमाश्रये ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुविष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं कवितार्किकसिंहाय कल्याणगुणशालिने श्रीमते वेङ्कटेशाय वेदान्तगुरवे नमः. श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. Namaskaram to all our devotees. Thank you for joining us. Today is the final session of the Narada Bhakti Sutras. We have so far covered up to 55 sutras of the 84 sutras totally. So we are in about 29-30 sutras. So we might go a little extra time today. We'll try to finish as much as we can. And as discussed before, the Narada Sutras has 84 sutras, which is divided into 5 chapters. The first chapter is from Sutra number 1 to 24, which actually defines Parabhakti. And then from 25 to 33, it tells why the path of Bhakti is greater than the other paths, like Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga and other things. And then from 34 to 50, Sage Narada is giving us some tips of how to develop this devotion. And 50 to 66 sutras are basically showing us signs of devotion. So basically giving us the signs signs and symptoms, like if you have a certain disease, you have certain signs, like same if you have bhakti, what are the signs and symptoms are there. And then from 67 to 84, it tells the greatness of the bhakta. So 25 to 33 tells you about the greatness of bhakti, and 67 to 84 talk about the greatness of a bhakta. But even in the 67 to 84, Narada still gives some tips about how to develop devotion, though it explains mainly the greatness of the devotee. So now with that, we finished with 55th Sutra last time. So can we start the slides, Venkatji? Okay, I think we finished with the 55th Sutra last time. Tat prapya tadeva lokayati tadeva srinoti tadeva bhashayati tadeva chintayati, which means one who attains this bhakti will always see God, will always hear about God, will always talk about God or always think about God. So that is one of the signs of a devotee. And now coming to 56th Sutra, that is what we will be starting today. And Narada is going to define Gauna Bhakti here. Gauni Trida Guna Bedat Artadi Bedadva. Gauni Trida Guna Bedat Artadi Bedadva. So we have to know Sage Narada is giving us several stages of bhakti. The initial stage is called Gauna Bhakti. Gauna Bhakti is like a little inferior form of bhakti. Then comes Mukhya Bhakti, which is a little superior form of bhakti. And Parabhakti is the final stage of bhakti, where the devotee is always merged in God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So Gauna Bhakti is what Sage Narada is going to define here, which is the first step of a ladder. You can think like a ladder. This is the first step. Mukhya Bhakti is the second step, and Parabhakti is the third step. Gauna Bhakti is the first step, and he is defining it as Gauni Trida Guna Bedad Artadi Bedadva. The Gauna Bhakti is divided into 3. Trida means 3, based on Guna and based on Artadi. So what does it mean is, Gunas means Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. So you can have Bhakti plus Tamo Guna, Bhakti plus Rajo Guna, Bhakti plus Sattva Guna. So that is one type of categorizing Bhakti. The other type is Artho Artharthi Gijnasu. Even Lord Krishna says in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Chadrutam Mam Bhajante. He says there are 4 types of devotees who are worshipping me. Artho Artharthi Gijnasu Jnani. He says the Artha, the Gijnasu and the Jnani are the 4 types who are worshipping me. So that is another, the Vedat is, one is Guna Vedat, one is Arthati Vedat. So Artha, Gijnasu. So what is Tamo Guna with Bhakti? Tamo Guna Bhakti means you are praying to God, but you are praying to God so that you can injure other people. So they are praying, you can also see some people are doing homas, we call Abhichara homas, to destroy other people. So they are still praying to God only, but they are praying to God for injuring other people. Who is the classic example? Hiranyakasipu and Bhasmasura. In our mythology, Hiranyakasipu is praying to Lord Brahmaji. He did severe tapas to get several boons, but only to injure other people. Same thing, Bhasmasura prays to Lord Shiva to get all the boons. So these are people who are devoted but still are praying to God to injure other people or cause harm to other people. That's what we call Tamo Bhakti. Rajo Bhakti is where they are praying God, but they are praying God to get more and more power and pleasures. They want, they are craving for certain things and power and pleasures. And example of this is Ravana and Banasura. Banasura comes in the Bhagavatam in the Krishna story, and Ravana comes in Ramayana. They also pray to Lord Shiva to get a lot of boons, but they are trying to get more power, more pleasures and all that control, all that stuff. So that is Rajoguna Bhakti. Sattva Bhakti is worshipping done with the aim of purifying the mind and without any particular selfish desires, but it's done for removal of the sins. So you are praying to God, Srimad Parameshwara Pritirtham Durdakshay Dwara, we say, which is to remove the sins. I am praying to you. So basically to remove your sins or your bad qualities, you are praying to God. That is called Sattva Bhakti. So Sattva Bhakti, Rajo Bhakti, Tamo Bhakti, these all have some ulterior motive, but it is better for one than the other. And then Lord Krishna also classifies the bhakti into 3 types in his 17th chapter, which is the Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga chapter, where Krishna also defines the Sattva, Rajo, Tamo Bhakti to Arjuna. So that's already defined. So Krishna gives the 4 type classification in the 7th chapter and the 3 type classification in the 17th chapter. And then the aspiration based is basically people are praying to God because they are suffering. That is the artha. They are having problems in life. That's why they are praying to God intensely. Example of this, Gajendra and Draupadi. Draupadi was tormented in the Hastinapura assembly. Gajendra was caught by the crocodile. They are praying to Lord Vishnu, but they are praying to get relief from the problem. Seeking power, Dhruva was driven away by his father and his cousin brother to a step brother out of the country. So he is coming to the forest. He is praying to God so that he can get his attention of the father, and he can also get some. That was his initial motive, but the change. But at least the initial motive was to get the attention of the father and get some recognition in the kingdom. So that was what Dhruva prayed for. And Uddhava Gita, Uddhava is a great friend of Krishna. He is praying to Krishna always to give him more knowledge. So Jnigyasu. So Gajendra is example of difficult Artha Bhakti. Dhruva is example of Artha Bhakti. And Uddhava is an example of Jnigyasu Bhakti. So these are all the different classes. But these all have a Bhakti with an ulterior motive. So that's why these are all called inferior levels. Narada classifies them. Gauni Bhakti. So now let's go to 57th Sutra. So the 57th Sutra is Uttarasmat Purva Shreyaya Bhavati. Uttarasmat Purva Shreyaya Bhavati. Here, though Narada has defined in the previous Sutra Gaudiya Bhakti as Guna Beda and Arthati Beda, he is telling even in this there is one is superior to the other. For example, in the Guna Bedas, the Rajo Bhakti is better than Tamo Bhakti, and then Sattva Bhakti is better than Rajo Bhakti. That's what he is telling. The previous ones are better than the other ones. So Sattva Bhakti is better than Rajo Bhakti is better than Tamo Bhakti. Same way in Artha Bhakti, the Artha, Arthartho, Jnigyasu, our Acharyas define Artha in 2 different ways. One is Artha means one who is suffering in life, having some problems, is praying to the God. That is also Artha Bhakti. The second way to define Artha Bhakti is they are having agony because they are separated from the God. They cannot worship God. They don't have the ability. Like we have a lot of our saints who were put in jail for some wrong reason, and they said, "Oh, I'm in jail. Like I want to be in the temple, seeing your face, O Lord." So those are devotees who are separated from the Lord, and they want to go and see the Lord again, or have a darshan of Him. So that is also another Artha Bhakti. So if you consider Artha Bhakti as one agony due to separation from the Lord, then Artha Bhakti is better than Jnigyasu Bhakti, which is better than Arthartho Bhakti. So Artha Bhakti is one who is praying for getting, having darshan of the Lord, whereas Jnigyasu Bhakti is one who is praying to get knowledge from the God, and Arthartha Bhakti is one who is trying to get relief from his problems or get more power in his thing. So Artha Bhakti is better than Jnigyasu Bhakti and Arthartho Bhakti. But if you consider Artha is just as praying from separation, then the order also will change. So Acharyas define it both ways. But basically what Narada is telling in this sutra is Uttarasmat, the previous ones are better than succeeding ones. Which means Sattva is better than Rajo, which means you are praying to God to injure others. That is the lowest level. You are praying to God for getting more powers. That is the middle level. You are praying to God to remove your sins and getting purification of mind. That is the higher level, Sattva Bhakti. So this is what Lord Narada is sage Narada is defining the different stages of Gaudi Bhakti. So now comes fifth sutra number 58. Anyasmat saulabhyam bhakto. Anyasmat saulabhyam bhakto. So what is emphasizing again, saulabhyam means it's easy. You know, Sulabhaya Suchilaya Venkateshaya Mangalam, there is a sloka which comes, in our Venkatesh Mangala Sasanam. Sulabhaya Suchilaya Venkateshaya Mangalam. Sulabha means one who is easy to attain. Sushila means one who easily mingles with the people. So, Saulabhya means bhakti is easy. Saulabhya means easy to get. Bhakti is not a very hard process like Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga. Compared to other Anyasmat means compared to the other paths, devotion is a easier method. He has already mentioned that. He is kind of reiterating the same statement because we talked about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga. These all require severe discipline. For Raja Yoga, you have to do the yamas, niyamas, asanas, pranayamas. For the Jnana Yoga, you should first get the Sadhana Chatushtaya, Viveka, Virakti, Shamadhi, Guna Sampat, and Mumukshutvam. You should get first what we call Sadhana Chatushtaya first, and then you have to learn a lot of scriptures and meditate on the scriptures. So same thing, Karma Yoga is doing lot of Vedic rituals, doing the pujas, the homas, with a particular selfless attitude. So basically, those are all little harder, difficult paths, whereas bhakti is easy for everybody, even for the most ignorant as well as the most knowledgeable. Bhakti part is easy because bhakti requires only constant remembrance of the God coupled with faith. So those are the two important things. You should have faith and you should remember God all the time. Those are the two important qualities which is required. And the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also praise that bhakti is a very easy path and which is adaptable by everybody else. So that is Anyasmat Saulabhyam Bhakto, which means compared to the other paths, PATHS, compared to the other paths, the path of bhakti is easy. Coming to Sutra number 59, Pramana Antarasya Anapekshatvat Swayam Pramanatvat. Pramana Antarasya Anapekshatvat Swayam Pramanatvat. So what it literally means is, because devotion does not depend on any other proof as it is proof of itself. Because pramana means proof. For example, you are asking, show me your devotion. What is the proof that you are telling I am devoted to Lord Vishnu, I am devoted to Lord Shiva. Show me the proof. What is the proof? And bhakti is one thing which doesn't depend on other proofs. It is Swayam Pramanatvat. It is proof of itself. So how is it explained that? Because in our Vedanta Shastra and Mimamsa Shastra, the Shaddarshanas, they talk about 6 pramanas. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda, Upamana, Anupalabdhi, Arthapatti. So basically these are the 6 pramanas, because to prove Vedanta Shastra's statements you need all the 6 proofs. Pratyaksha means direct proof. What is direct proof? Fire is burning, you put your hand in the fire, your hand gets burnt. That's a direct proof that fire burns. You don't need anything. You put the hand in the fire, your hand gets burnt, fire will cause burnings. So that is direct proof. Anumana is logic deduction. For example, you are coming to your neighborhood street, you are seeing a big smoke in your neighbor's house. So you are deducing that there is fire. You are actually not seeing the fire by itself, you are only seeing the smoke on the outside of the house. By the smoke you are guessing, oh, there should be fire inside the house. So that is what Anumana, which is by logical deduction. Sabda means, Shabda Pramana means based upon scriptures. Veda is telling this is that. We don't see Yamaloka. There is a Loka called Yamaloka where the dead people go. We don't see that Loka. But the Vedas are telling that Loka is there. So the Vedas are the proof for that statement. We call Sabda Pramana. Then Upamana. Upamana means example. For example, let's say you have not seen an elephant. Somebody is trying to teach you how an elephant looks like. He's giving some example. It's a big size. It has 4 legs. And he's comparing it with some other, it is almost the size of this house. He's showing a small house. Each elephant is like almost size of this house. So then he is giving you an idea. So by giving an example, he is making you understand the concept. That is called Upamana. And then Anupalabdhi and Arthapatti, they are a little bit more tougher. I don't want to diverge the Anupalabdhi and Arthapatti. Those are also The absence of proof is Anupalabdhi, and Arthapatti is the presumption. Is that. So these are the 6 categories of pramanas which we use in both Mimamsa Shastra and Vedanta Shastra. So for bhakti, what is the pramana? This is the example how Narada is explaining. Let's say you are eating a sweet mango. You are tasting the mango. You need no proof, no need to somebody to come and tell that mango is sweet, because you are yourself eating the mango and you are feeling the taste of the mango. You don't need no other proof like somebody else to tell it. Same way, you are coming from work very tired, you are very hungry. You need nobody else to tell you that you are hungry. You are experiencing the hunger yourself, and that is a proof. So that you need no external proof to show that you have hunger. You have the own hunger for yourself. Same thing, you love your child, you have the feeling inside your heart. You need no proof, somebody else to tell you you love your child or anything. Those are all like tasting the mango, feeling the hunger, having the love for your child. These are all inbuilt in you. There is no other proof for you need. You yourself know it. The proof, you don't need any external proof like pratyaksha or sabda or anumana or anything like that. Same way, bhakti is an internal feeling. You yourself will feel the bliss. That's what Sage Narada is telling. So you yourself will feel the bliss of bhakti. So you need no other proof that bhakti is there. So that is what it says. Pramana antarasya anapekshatvat swayam pramanatvat. Swayam pramanatvat, it is proof of itself. Then coming to sutra number 60, which says Shanti Rupat Paramananda Rupascha. Shanti Rupat Paramananda Rupascha. So this path of devotion is easy because it is also the nature of peace and supreme happiness. Parama Ananda means supreme happiness. Shanti means peace. So this bhakti will give you both. It gives you both peace of mind as well as it gives you the supreme happiness. So because of that also bhakti is very easy to adopt, because it gives you both these feelings. So how is this given an example? Let's take honey, 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 sweet honey, we call Madhuram. If you put honey in the mouth, anybody, if 10 people are there, unless you have some taste problem or some neurologic problem, if all 10 people put honey, all 10 people will feel the sweet taste only. It will not be tasting different. Everybody will feel the same taste. So this way, like honey is giving sweetness to everybody. Anybody who is eating honey, it will feel tasteful only. Same way, this bhakti gives you the same feeling for everybody. There is no difference, and it is sweet like honey. And even the most wicked person, because we say love, because what is bhakti? Bhakti is love or supreme love for God. So love is a natural feeling. So you are not trying to build something in your, for only doing asana, pranayama mandal, you should control yourself so much. But love is a natural feeling. Like everybody has love for something. Even the most wicked person has a love for something. He might love his child, he might love something. The more evolved spiritual people, they love everybody. They love the entire creation. They look even the animals, everything, they love them. Though the most supreme acharyas and the sannyasis, they have love for the entire creation. Whereas there is gradations of love. Even the most wicked person will have love for something. For example, Ravana was a wicked person, but he loved his son Indrajit very much. He had very much attachment to his son Indrajit. Same thing, Duryodhana, we know, was a very wicked person, but he had very special affection for Karna. Even Duryodhana is a wicked person, but he has always a soft corner and special affection for Karna. He used to say, Karna is my greatest friend every time, And Jarasandha was another bad person, but he had a very affection for his son-in-law Kamsa. So what I am telling is, even the most wicked person has love of some part for somebody. So this love is a natural feeling. You are just directing this natural love to God. So that is why bhakti is also easy, because it is one of your natural feelings, and you are just developing the natural feeling itself. You are not trying to create something which is not there. And like I said, the highest level of bhakti, everybody, you begin to see everything as a creation of God. You have love for the entire creation. That is the highest level. But like I said, everybody has this even at the lower levels. Let's go to Sutra number 61. Lokahanau Chinta Nakarya Nivedita Atma Loka Vedatvat. Lokahanau Chinta Nakarya Nivedita Atma Loka Vedatvat. So Nivedita means like Naivedyam, like you offer it to the Lord. Like we offer Naivedyam without Pongal to the Lord, we offer milk to the Lord, so all Naivedyam. Here Sage Narada is telling, Naivedyam, the one who is devoted, has already offered his Atma as a Naivedyam to the Lord. Loka, all his worldly concerns as an offering to the Lord. And Vedas, even the Vedas means here all the religious activities. So Nivedya means he has offered his own self. Atma is Nivedya, the person who is very devoted is offered his own self to the Lord. He has offered all his worldly things to the, he says even whatever property I have, it is only belonging to the Lord. My entire family also belongs only to the Lord. So that is what the Loka. And Vedatvat means all the religious activities, whatever he is doing, that also is offering only as offering to the God. He is not having any ulterior motive. So the Bhakta should feel no anxiety. Lokahano chintana karya. Because once he becomes in the path of devotion, lokahano chinta na karya. Chinta means constantly thinking. He should have na karya means no chinta. He should have no chinta about all the worldly things. So once he goes to the path of devotion, he should forget, oh, that person won the election, that person got killed today, something happened, all these are the worldly things. You should not be focusing, you should not be spending your time on all the worldly things, because you are offering yourself, your worldly concerns as well as all your religious activities as offering to the Lord. So the Bhakta offers all this because he has already offered all this to the Lord. He should not be spending his time on all the worldly matters, thinking about them, always debating about them and all that stuff. So even Swami Desikan, there is a sloka, Swami Vedanta Desikan is a famous Vaishnavacharya, he is a disciple of the Ramanuja Parampara. He wrote a lot of scriptures. There is this book called, there is a small sloka called Nyasa Dashakam. Dashakam means 10, and in Tamil the same thing is called Adaikala Pattu. Adaikalam also means surrender to the Lord, Pattu means 10. Nyasa Dashakam translated into Tamil is called Adaikala Pattu. He wrote both in Sanskrit and Tamil. The Sanskrit one is called Nyasa Dashakam. The Tamil one is called Adaikala Pattu. Basically in that he says the same thing. I have offered everything to you, Lord, so I am not going to be worrying about anything else because everything is belonging to you now. So the example given is, let's say you have a cow. You sold your cow to the neighbor. Now the neighbor owns the cow. Now you are not going to worry about who is going to feed the cow, who is going to bring the calf to the cow, who is going to take care of the disease of the cow. You have sold the cow to somebody else, so you no longer worry about what happens to the cow. Same way, you have offered everything to the Lord, it belongs to the Lord, so you don't need to worry about anything else. So that's what this sutra means. Lokahano chintana karya nivedita atma loka vedatvat. Let's go to sutra number 62. It says, Natat siddhau loka vyavaharo heya kintu palatyagastat sadhanansha karyameva. Till big sutra. Natat siddhau loka vyavaharo heya kintu palatyagastat sadhanansha karyameva. So what it means is, till this bhakti is developed, Natat siddhau loka vyavaharo, till this bhakti is developed, one must not neglect to observe social responsibility. One should surely perform them, but he should offer the fruits of all activities to the Lord. So it says, Natat siddhau means till you reach the ripe stage of bhakti, which is the final stage of Mukhya Bhakti or Parabhakti. Don't give up anything, because people will tell, oh, I am having bhakti to the God, so I am no longer going to work. I am no longer going to take care of the family. I am going to spend my time only in the bhakti to the Lord. So what Sage Narada is telling is, till you get to the ripe stage of bhakti, loka vyavaharo means loka vyavaharo, all the worldly activities, don't give them up. But you should still do them, but you just do them, but do it as an offering to the Lord. So you are going to work, earning money, just tell I am earning this money only to offer to the Lord, or I am going to support my family, but even now my family itself belongs to the Lord, so I am supporting the Lord's people. So that's how you have to assume. Now, because you offered everything to the Lord, everything belongs to the Lord, so now you are like a caretaker for the Lord. So let's say you have a home, you have a watchman, you go out of the country for 10 days, you tell the watchman to take care of the home. So like that, you now think everything is the property of the God, you are like a watchman, so the watchman still has to work to take care of the house. Same way, you are now like a watchman for the properties of the God, you still have to work to maintain the property. So that's how Sage Narada wants you to look at this picture. So Natat siddhau means till you achieve the final ripe stage of bhakti, loka vyavaharo heya, don't give up all your worldly things. Kintu palastyagastad, but do them. Palastyagam means giving up the fruit. So don't think that you are doing it for yourself. Don't try to get any fruit out of it, but do it as a sadhana. That is the most important thing. So this is what it means. So conscious efforts must be made steadily in the form of selfless work. Basically, the more selfless work you do, it disciplines the mind. And that's what Lord Krishna dedicates the chapter 3 and 4 in Bhagavad Gita. Karma Yoga and Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. In the 3rd and 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is actually emphasizing only these points what Sage Narada is telling. He tells Arjuna, don't give up your duties. Even kings like Janaka, even after they attained all the spiritual realization, they didn't give up their duties. I have nothing, I am controlling the 3 worlds. I have nothing to gain in the world, but I am also still doing my duty. So Krishna gives so many examples in the 3rd and 4th chapter of Gita to Arjuna that don't give up the activities like that. So this is what Sage Narada is also emphasizing here. And now coming to Sutra number 63. Stri Dana Nastika Vairi Charitram Nasravaniyam. Stri Dana Nastika Vairi Charitram Nasravaniyam. So he is giving a tip again for the bhakti development. The Stri part, I'm going to say this is little controversial, but we'll say you can also include Stri and Pumsa together. Stri means woman, Pumsa means man. Basically what it is telling is Charitram na Shravaniya means don't read them. Sravana means like learning or listening or reading. Everything comes under Shravana. You are trying to gain knowledge by either listening or reading. Charitra means all the stories. Narada is telling don't read 4 stories. Don't read stories about women. Don't read stories about wealth. Don't read stories about Nastikas, like who are and all against God. And don't read stories about your own enemy. Everybody has some enemy. Don't keep on trying to analyze your enemy's chapter. So basically, Narada is telling stay away from this. But what we should emphasize more than 3 is don't read passionate stories. There are stories, love stories, all the way explaining the love between man and woman and all that stuff. So basically what Sage Narada is telling is don't focus your mind on reading the stories which increase the passion between man and woman. Don't read stories which are always focused on wealth. Don't read stories which focus on atheists. And don't read stories about your enemies. So basically he is giving these 4 tips. So he is telling what to do, but he is also telling us what not to do. So the more you read these stories, you will become more attached to wealth, more attached to atheism, more attached to you'll get more and more angry about your enemy the more you read about him. And the more you read about passionate stories, it will flame passions in you. So basically Sage Narada is telling us don't focus all these things, because Lord Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Kama, Krodha and Lobha are the 3 gateways to hell. The desire, the anger and the greed. So if you are reading about wealth stories, you'll get more greed. You are reading more passionate stories, you'll get more kama. And the same thing, if you are reading about your enemy, you'll get more angry. So kama, krodha, lobha. So that's what Sage Narada is telling. Don't keep on reading all these stories, because they will only increase your kama, krodha and lobha. And Lord Krishna clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, the kama, krodha, lobha are the 3 ways to hell. Dwaram, narakat. He says all these are the Arjuna, these 3 are things which takes people to Naraka, not Swarga. So we know that, and there is a lot of stories in our Puranas too, where for example we know Ravana was very passionate for women. He will abduct women, and that's how he even abducts Sita. He has so much of wives, so he is so passionate about women. Duryodhana is passionate for land and power. He wants more control. That's why he wants to kick the Pandavas out. He wants to even take the Indraprastha under his control. So basically he is more greedy about getting more land and power. And Narakasura is more passionate for wealth, and also he goes and steals everything from Indra. So he's more, we call Pennasai, Ponnasai, Mannasai in Tamil. Pennasai means desire for women, Ponnasai means desire for gold, and Mannasai means desire for land. Ravana is example of Pennasai, Duryodhana is example of Mannasai, and Narakasura is example of Ponnasai. More and more wealth he wanted. And we know all these 3 were ultimately destroyed by Lord Vishnu in his avatars. Ravana was destroyed by Rama, Narakasura was destroyed by Krishna, and Duryodhana was destroyed by Bhima, but not with the support of only Krishna. Only Krishna tells ideas to Bhima how to kill Duryodhana and all. So basically we know that all these are bad things, and they will, so the Lord Vishnu destroys those things. So that's why specifically we should avoid this. But reading stories about women like Sita or Lopamudra or Anasuya or Arundhati, those are all great women stories. So even those stories will be very, very, very uplifting. So we should focus on that. Sage Narada will discuss that later also. Now coming to Sutra number 64. Abhimana Dambadikam Tyajyam. Abhimana Dambadikam Tyajyam. So here is Abhimana is one, Damba Adika means Abhimana means more and more self-centered. You are more and more self-centered. You are getting more and more arrogant. And Damba means arrogant is like feeling yourself, and Damba means expressing I am the greatest, I am this, that. So trying to falsely elevate yourself. So Abhimana is the inner feeling of arrogance, whereas Dambam is the external feeling of projecting it to others. So if you see all these sutras, there is only two themes. One theme is developing good qualities, other theme is getting rid of bad qualities. So Sage Narada is mixing us both. So he is giving tips how to develop good qualities. He is also telling what bad qualities to give up. So Abhimana and Damba are two bad qualities. Tyajya means give away, relinquish them. Tyajya means relinquish. So Sage Narada is telling, these are, Lord Krishna also says this, there is one full chapter in the Bhagavad Gita called Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. The 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Daiva Asura. Lord Krishna categorizes some qualities called divine qualities, some qualities are called asuric or demonic qualities. So divine qualities and demonic qualities. So Krishna describes to Arjuna what are the divine qualities, what are the demonic qualities, and he tells to Arjuna, he tells about 26 divine qualities in the chapter, and he lists only 6 demonic qualities. But the 6 demonic qualities are so bad that they will submerge the 26 good qualities. So Krishna is categorizing to Arjuna what are divine qualities, what are demonic qualities, and he is telling to Arjuna you should get rid of these demonic qualities and develop the divine qualities. But at the end of the chapter he says to Arjuna, you already have a lot of divine qualities. That's what he says. Masucha comes there also. But basically the chapter is to give us an explanation what are good, what are bad, what we should avoid and what we should develop. And that's what Sage Narada is also following the same theme here. So let's go to Sutra number 65 now. Tad arpita akila acharah san kama krodha abhimanadi tasmin eva karaniyam. Tad arpita akilacharah san kama krodha abhimanadi tasmin eva karaniyam. So what it means is, let's say you have lot of this. Here again Narada is describing kama, krodha, abhimana. He's telling you, let's say you have lot of desire, lot of anger, lot of self-arrogance and boasting, all these qualities you have. He's telling now you are in the path of devotion, offer this also to the Lord. Tat arpita akilachara tasmin eva karaniyam. Like you are offering flower to the Lord, you are offering pongal prasadam to the Lord, offer also your bad qualities to the Lord. Because tell the Lord, these are my bad qualities, I have kama, krodha, abhimana. And now since I am offering everything to you, I am offering also my bad qualities to you. So that way, because if you offer the bad qualities to the Lord, slowly the Lord will get rid of those bad qualities. So he's saying even consider this as like a naivediyam to the Lord. All the bad qualities what you have, also tell the Lord, I am offering this to Lord, you take this away from me. So Narada is giving us a good example on how to get rid of these bad qualities. He's telling these bad qualities are me, like I am offering myself, my family, my wealth, everything to you. I am also offering all these bad qualities also to you, so you take care of this. So basically, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is giving a good example. Let's say you are getting very angry. He says, instead of directing the anger to other people, direct the anger to yourself. Like, why am I getting this anger? Why am I having these bad qualities? So direct the anger to your bad qualities. So same way, if you are having kama, too much desire, change your desire. Okay, I am having desire for going to more movies. Slowly I am going to have desire to go to more temples. So you can kind of change your desire direction. So basically those are the ways of submerging these devotees. And we know that even by constant hatred, so thinking about God one way or the other is going, because even with anger somebody is thinking with God. We know that Kamsa, Lord Krishna killed him, but he got mukti. And then Shishubala, Lord Krishna killed him, he got mukti, because Kamsa was always fearing about Lord Krishna, with fear, oh, this Krishna is going to kill me. But so he was almost meditating on Krishna every day. Same way Shishubala had so much hatred to Krishna, he was also meditating on Krishna every day. So indirectly or directly they were still meditating on the Lord, but with the different attitudes. But the Lord recognizes that. So he says, you are still meditating on me and I will give you moksha. So that is what basically offer all the bad qualities to the Lord. So that is Sutra number 65. Let's go to Sutra 66. This says, Trirupa Banga Purvakam Nitya Dasya Nitya Kanta Bhajanatmakam Prema Karyam Premaiva Karyam Trirupa Banga Purvakam Nitya Dasya Nitya Kanta Bhajanatmakam Prema Karyam Premaiva Karyam. So what says Narada is telling is love and love alone. Prema Karyam and Premaiva Karyam means love and love alone, such as that of a devotee or a servant. Because if you see, there is a faithful servant. Dasa means servant. Kanta means wife or lover. Like a servant, a faithful servant is very dedicated to his master. Same way, a dedicated wife is very dedicated. A good wife is very dedicated to her husband. So like a dedicated servant or a dedicated wife, bhajanatmakam, always offer yourself and pray to the Lord. So that's prema karyam, always have only love for the Lord. Prema karyam, premaiva karyam, like what? Like how a dedicated wife loves her husband, or a dedicated servant loves his master. You need to have that particular type of love to the Lord. So that is, he's telling this is how you start with. Even this is kind of emotion. He's giving an example, like a servant to the master or a wife to her husband. In that way, start developing love to the Lord. But he's telling Trirupa Banga Purvakam. Trirupa Banga Purvakam means have the love, Lord, but take out this Trinity. Trinity means three things. Trirupam. So what does this Trinity is telling? Again, there is a lot of interpretations for this Trirupa. Sattva, Raja and Tamo. We know the three gunas, Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna. You should slowly get rid of all these gunas. So first you get rid of Tamo guna, then you get rid of Rajo guna, then you get rid of Mishra Sattva, then you go to Suddha Sattva. So slowly develop love with getting the gunas out of this. So this is Trirupa Bangam, means getting rid or breaking it. Same thing, Artho Gigyasu. So you are either praying to the Lord for suffering, or you are praying to the Lord to get more power, or you are praying to the Lord to get more knowledge. So this is again another Trirupa. And the other thing is the triputis. There is a devotee, there is a devoted Lord, there is a Lord and the devotion. So devotee, Lord and devotion. This is what we call triputi. Slowly you should get off this trinity, you should merge yourself in God. So the Trirupam has multiple meanings. Either it could mean getting rid of all the three gunas, or getting rid of the three aspirations, or getting rid of the trifold concept. So either way, develop love and love alone, like a husband or like a wife to her husband, or like a servant to his master, and slowly try to get rid of the three gunas. So that is what Sutra 66. Sutra number 67. And here the fifth chapter starts. So we have to remember that from 67th to 84, the fifth and final chapter starts. And basically here the glory of the bhakta is being explained. So what are the, once you become a bhakta, what are the things, what is the glory of being a bhakta? But again, even in this chapter, though it explains the glory of bhakta, here and there, Sage Narada will still give us tips on how to develop bhakti also. It's kind of interspersed there. So 67th sutra is Bhakta Ekantino Mukhyaha. Bhakta Ekantino Mukhyaha. So this is Mukhya Bhakti. So we talked about Gauna Bhakti, then comes Mukhya Bhakti, then final comes Para Bhakti. So what is this? Bhakta Ekantino Mukhyaha means, Eka Antina means only one-pointed devotion. There is a one-pointed devotion to God for its own sake. That is the primary or Mukhya Bhakti. So Mukhya Bhakti means you are having only one-pointed devotion to the God. So what do you mean by one-pointed devotion? Means there is no worldliness, there is no selfishness. Which means we talked about in the previous sutra, the Trirupam. You are praying to God for suffering or power or knowledge. So here you are praying to God just for the sake of praying, for the sake of devotion. You are not expecting anything. There is no ulterior motive. And the second thing is, some people are attached to God, but they are also attached to going to movies. So that's, you are having two divergence. So basically, you are slowly focusing attention to God. So you are having only attention to God, and also you are having attention to God without any ulterior motive. That is why you are saying no worldliness or no selfishness. So the one point of devotion to the Lord, that is what we call as Mukhya Bhakti. Bhakta ekantino mukhyaha. So that is the 67th sutra. And then this Mukhya Bhakti is also defined by, very nicely by Yamunacharya, Ramanujacharya's guru in his Gita Sangraha. He also tells the same definition. One who is having devotion to the Lord without having any worldly attachment or also any ulterior motives. That is the real Bhakti growth. Then comes Sutra number 68. Kanta Varoda Romancha Shrubihi Parasparam Lapamanaha Pavayanti Kulani Prithivimcha. Kanta Varoda Romancha Shrubihi Parasparam Lapamanaha Pavayanti Kulani Prithivimcha. So we told this particular chapter is going to give you the greatness of Bhakta. Kanta Varoda means throat. Your throat gets really, when people start crying, your throat gets a little bit crackly and things. So Kanta Varoda means when you are seeing God, you are so emotional of seeing the God. So your throat crackles. That is what Kanta Varoda. Romancha means horripilation. Your hair stands on the skin. Sometimes when you get so emotional, so the hair stands, and Shrubihi means the eyes, your tears are coming out. So for a real devotee, as soon as he sees gods, his throat starts to crackle, his hair stands on end, and tears float of eye. With a very, very famous sloka of Anjaneya, which says that whenever Anjaneya hears Lord Rama's name, immediately tears will come from his eyes. That is a very famous sloka about Anjaneya. Every time Anjaneya or Lord Hanuman, he hears just hearing the name of Lord Rama, immediately his hands will go to like Namaste posture, and tears will start coming. So that is, Hanuman is given the best example of this Kanta Varoda Romancha Shrubihi. Every time, yatra yatra runada kirtram tatra tatra kridamasta kanjalim. That is the sloka which comes. Wherever he hears the ear of Rama, immediately his hands will go to doing namaskaram, and his tears will start flowing from his eyes. So Kanta Varoda Roman, like this, real devotees are like that. Every time they see the God or hear about God, their throat crackles, their skin stands on end, their tears come out of these eyes. And Parasparam Lapamana, these are the people who keep purifying everybody. These are the Pavayanti. Pavaya means is to purify. So these are the true devotees who purify all their neighbors. They also purify Kulani. Kulani means their own ancestry or their own family lineage, as well as Prithivi, the entire earth. So these are the real devotees who actually purify people around them, purify their family lineage, and also they purify the earth itself. So these are all, the devotees, they do it. And Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, that his devotees are constantly talking about him, mutually conversing about him, and they are very happy. And so Sutta Samhita, which is Sutta Samhita, is in Skanda Purana, also says the same thing. The whole family gets blessed, the mother gets blessed, the earth gets blessed with such a devotee. So that is the thing. So let's go to Sutra number 69. Tirti kurvanti tirtani, sukarmi kurvanti karmani, satshastri kurvanti shastrani. Tirti kurvanti tirtani, sukarmi kurvanti karmani, satshastri kurvanti shastrani. Such devotees, people who get that high level of devotion, they are the one who actually, tirti kurvanti tirtani means, tirtham means tirtha yatre, pilgrimage. Actually, they are the ones who purify this. We think going to pilgrimage purifies us, but what Sage Narada is telling, because these devotees are staying in these pilgrimage places, because of the devotees only, the pilgrimage place itself gets actually purified. So we are thinking the other way around. We are going to pilgrimage to purify ourselves, but Sage Narada is telling the pilgrimage place itself gets purified only by these people. Shukarmi kurvanti karmani. You know, we are doing all these good homas, pujas, everything. It is only because these good people are there that puja becomes like a real karma. And chastastri kurvanti shastrani means you are following the shastras. So we are following shastras to purify ourselves. But Narada is telling the shastras itself get purified by the people who are these bhaktas who are following it. Like a great devotee like Eknath or Tukaram, they are following shastras. He says the shastras gets purified because of these devotees. So since Narada is telling the greatest of devotees, the pilgrimage places get purified by these devotees. The good actions get much better good because of these devotees, and even the shastras get their validity from these great devotees. So that is the greatest of these devotees. The best example given is Bhagiratha. If you know Bhagiratha chapter in the Gangavataranam in the Bhagavatam, says Bhagiratha is trying to bring Ganges from the heavens. You know, he does so much of penance to Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Ganga starts from Vishnupada, comes to Brahmaloka, from Brahmaloka it comes down to earth. Lord Shiva takes the Ganges in his hair, and then he lets the Ganges slowly out from his hair to flow. We know these stories. At that time when the Ganges is trying to come to earth, he says, Bhagiratha, you are praying for me to come to earth, but I am so pure, when I come to earth, all these sinners will come and take bath on me. I will get dirty because of their sins. Who is going to purify me? So Ganges, who is the supreme purifier, you know, there is no purifier like the Ganga river. Ganges itself is asking, Ganga Mata is asking Bhagiratha, Bhagiratha, who is going to purify me? When I come to earth, all the sinners will come and take bath on me. I will get all their sins. Then Bhagiratha is giving this famous Sostra, is telling, don't worry Ganga Mata, the real devotees of Lord Vishnu will also take bath on you. And once they come and take a bath on you, all the sins what you get from other sinners will automatically go away. So even if there are 1,000 sinners coming and bathing on a river, one good person, one devotee will come and bath, and because of that devotee coming, you will get purified constantly. So even for Ganges, this is said that even for Ganges gets purified by a devotee. So these are all how we are telling that how the greatness of a devotee is. We think Ganges purifies us, but the Bhagiratha chapter says even the Vishnu devotees purify the Ganges. So these are all some examples of the greatness of a bhakta. Let's go to Sutra number 70. Tanmayaha. So Sutra number says Tanmayaha, which means Tanmayaha means they are full of Him. The devotees are full of the Lord, which means your whole body is consecrated by the Lord. They are always meditating on the Lord. They are always singing about the Lord. They are doing so much mantra japa. Because of that, their whole body becomes divine. They become like Tanmayaha means they become like the Lord itself. And we saw that in one of the previous sutras too. Between the Bhakta and the devotee, at one stage there is no between Bhakta and the Lord. There is no Abhedat. There is Abhedat means no difference between them. So the more and more you grow devotion, you will also become divine yourself. That's what the sutra says. They are full of Him means they themselves become fully divine. Such devotees, he says, they are full of Him. They attain the form of the Lord itself. We call it Sayujyam. They attain, and Sarupyam. Sarupyam means attaining the form of the Lord, and Sayujyam means merging to the Lord. So because these saintly devotees have completely emptied themselves of all bad qualities, desire, anger, fear, all these bad qualities are gone by them, and they are always meditating on the Lord. So they got all the bad qualities out of them, and they are full of divine qualities. So they become like the Lord itself. And Lord Krishna Himself says this in the Bhagavad Gita too. Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. One who is completely rid of anger, fear, desire, slowly they attain my form. Then, Lord Krishna Himself says, the one who is constantly emptying himself of all the bad qualities and constantly meditating on me will slowly attain my form itself. Even Lord Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. So the entire creation for them is Vishnu Mayam Jagat. Jale Vishnu, Stale Vishnu, Vishnu Akashcha Muchyate, Stavaram Jangamam Vishnu, Sarvam Vishnu Mayam Jagat. So they perceive the entire creation as Vishnu, so they also get absorbed in Lord Vishnu. So this is because of their grand realization, they just, by their presence itself, they invoke the divinity. So that's what they say, when you see a saint, it is almost like seeing the God itself. That's what our Acharyas also say. So this is again to explain the greatness of the devotee. Sutra number 71. No, 11. Sutra number 71. Modante pitaro nirtyanti devataha sanataha cheyam bhur bhavati. Modante pitaro nirtyanti devataha sanataha cheyam bhur bhavati. So what it says is Modante pitaro means pitara means all your ancestors, just not your own father, grandfather, great grandfather, the entire ancestry. They're very, very happy, it seems. Once they see a devotee like this come in their family, all the pitrus are very happy. Nrityanti devataha. Devata means all the devas are dancing. Nrityanti means they are dancing with joy. So once they see a great devotee, the ancestors are very happy. The devatas are dancing. Sanataha cheyam bhur bhavati. The earth itself gets very happy too, it seems. So the earth gets happy, the mother earth, the mother earth gets happy, the devatas get happy, the ancestors get happy. Because the reason is, we say that in our religion everybody is born with three loans, because rina means loans, devarin, pitrurin and rishirin. So everybody has some kind of loan towards the devas, some kind of loan towards their ancestors, some kind of loan to the rishis. So the rishi rin is overcome by reading all the Veda Dhyanam, Swadhyayam, you get. So because the rishis have given all these, by reading whatever they given, you repay the loan for them. For the pitrus, by doing the pitrukaryam and developing the family, by propagating the family, and also by doing all the pitrukaryams, you please your pitrus. And for the devatas, by doing all the puja, homa, japa, you please the devatas. So everybody has got these three loans to fulfill. But one who has become a great devotee, he doesn't need to do all these things. He doesn't need to separately fulfill the rishirin, devarin, pitrurin. And not only that, because of him, his entire ancestry also are taken out of this obligation. And this is very famously told by Lord Narasimha in Prahlada Charitra in Bhagavatam. Lord Narasimha himself says, because of Prahlada, 21 ancestors before him in the Asura Janma, they are all now rid of all their sins. So that's what the sage Narada is emphasizing here. That's why the Pitrus are happy, the Devatas are happy, the earth is happy, because the devotees are always spreading the message of goodwill. And because of that, they are trying to reduce hatred and fighting and bloodshed in the earth. So that's why the earth is happy. The more devotees come, earth says this is going to be a more peaceful place. And the Devatas are happy because everybody is going to follow the Shastras and do the rituals. The devotees preach them. So because of that only, all these people get happy. So these are another greatness of the devotee. And then comes Sutra number 72. Nasti teshu jati vidya rupa kula dhana kriyadi bedaha. Nasti teshu jati vidya rupa kula dhana kriyadi bedaha. What it says is, among the devotees, na asti, don't make any difference based on jati, vidya, rupa, kula, dhana and kriya. 6 things. Jati is your birth class, or birth caste or class. Vidya means education level. Rupa means beautiful or ugly. Kula means you come from a rich family or educated family or a very royal family. Dhana means wealth, and kriya means activity. Because we see among the Alvars and Nayanmar saints in our history, some of them are even kings. Kulasekhara Alvar was a king, whereas Nammalvar was born in a very poor family, and Tiruppan Alvar was born in a very poor family, making all the supportive things for the people. So same thing in the Nayanmar. Some of the Nayanmars were like kings. Mangayarkarasi was a queen of Madurai, and same thing. There were people like who are just simple potters or ordinary people. So they were all devotees. So some of them are rich, some of them are poor, some of them are educated, some of them are uneducated, some of them look pretty, some of them look ugly. So, but based on that, don't make devotee, because once you become a supreme devotee, there is no difference based on jati, vidya, rupa, kula and dhana and kriya. So that's what Sage Narada is telling. Once they become a supreme devotee, then there is no difference based upon their birth caste or their education or anything like that, and you should also not make any difference. Yatas tadiyaha, that is sutra number 73. Yatas tadiyaha. Because all these devotees belong to the Lord. Why should he not make a difference? He's trying to re-emphasize the point. He told in the previous sutra, don't make difference among the devotees based on their birth or their caste or their education or anything. Why? He's telling the reason. Because all of these belong to the Lord. All of these devotees are Lord's properties. So for the Lord, he doesn't see, we call samadrishti. Samadrishti means the Lord looks equally with them. We know in stories how even Vishnu appears, in the house of a potter woman, and also he also appears before Lord Ambarisha, the great king of the Raghuvamsa. So, Lord Vishnu shows no devotees. He appears before a simple woman as well as he appears before a potter woman. Same thing, Lord Shiva. There's a lot of stories in Shiva Purana where Lord Shiva appears for a very ordinary woman. Based on a devotion. He also appears for a king. So these are all, he also appears, when Indra did penance, he also appeared in front of Indra. So the Lord appears before anybody if they are devoted. So he doesn't see the difference. Because the Lord has samadrishti, we should also have samadrishti for this devotee. So we should not tell, oh, Nammadvar was a poor devotee, Kulashekara was a rich devotee. So you don't make difference, because the Lord himself doesn't see difference among his devotees, because they are all his properties. All these devotees have only two qualities in common. Irrespective of their jati, vidya, rupa, kula, dhana, kriya, all of them had two things. One, they had single-minded devotion. Two, they led a virtuous life, which means they were all very pure. They were not, they didn't have all the bad qualities we said, the kama, krodha, lobha, damba, adhikam, all those things which we listed in the previous sutras. So a devotee had only, all these devotees had two common qualities. They had single-minded devotion to the Lord, and they had no bad qualities. They are all virtuous qualities only. So the Lord looks only at those two things, and that is why he has samadrishti. So that's why we should also not make difference on the devotees based upon their other characteristics. So this is the sutra number 73. And sutra number 74 is Vado na avalambyaha. So we are now on Sutra 74. We got another 10 sutras to cover. So today is being the final session. We'll just go a little bit like 10-15 minutes extra. We'll try to finish by 11:15 and try to cover all the sutras. That way, we can wrap up this session. So, Vado na avalambyaha, which means don't enter into vain discussions. Na avalambyaha means, na means no. Don't, Vado means discussions or debates. So Narada is giving a tip here. Vado na avalambya means don't get into unnecessary debates, because that's very important. The discussions can be two types. Some of them are just heated discussions, debates. We see presidential debates, gubernatorial debates, all those debates we see. They are constantly debating on one point or the other. Finally, it ends in only in hostility and confusion. So some of these discussions and debates only increase hostility and confusion. Whereas divine discussions with a calm mind, everybody is devoted. They are talking about the glory of the God, singing the glory of God. Everybody has a calm and peaceful mind. There the exchange of ideas is allowed. So Narada is only telling, don't get into unnecessary vain discussions and waste your time. Because truths according to our Hindu religion, spiritual truths cannot be realized just by logical arguments. We believe in logic. That's why we have an entire shastra called Nyaya Shastra. So the Hindu religion completely believes in logic, but they say the logic should be subservient to the higher scriptural truths and the intuitive truths. Basically, logic is necessary, but logic is not everything. So you should not just use logic to any extreme to debate, because if you can get a better debater, he can debate you out of the competition. So just debates are not very essential after a particular point, because meditation and discussions with the great acharyas, they supersede logic. So, and again, when you get into too much debates, you get agitated mind. With agitated mind, you cannot get the higher truths, but only with a peace and calmful mind, you can get the higher truths. So that's why Narada said, don't get into unnecessary discussions. Sutra number 75. Bahulya avakashatvad aniyatatvacha. Bahulya avakashatvad aniyatatvacha. Because he is now giving a reason why you should not get into vain discussions, because he said in the previous sutra, don't get into unnecessary vain discussions, because he is now giving the reason why you should not do it. Bahulya avakashatvad aniyatatvat means, Bahulya means there are many different opinions. Even for one particular point, each person will give a different opinion. So because there is so many different opinions for even a single point, and depending upon the intelligence, he's saying the intelligent person can argue in multiple different viewpoints. So you'll be just going around and around in vain discussion. So these vain discussions will not lead to realization of the God. So intellect, because our intellect is only finite, God is infinite. So you cannot grasp the infinite with the finite. You are trying to use the intellect to debate and understand. Certain things are beyond even the capacity of the intellect. Only by meditation and pure devotion you can understand those truths. So that's what says Narada is telling, because there is different viewpoints even for a single topic, and there are so many intelligent people, you will be just going around and round in unnecessary debates. And there is a very famous statement by Lord Yama to Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad. Lord Yama actually states this statement: in Nachiketa, you cannot obtain too much by too much learning or too much discussion. Only who gets the grace of the Lord, he will understand the final truth. So he's telling the specific statement. You need logic, but he says, but if you get into too much discussions and things, that's not going to take you to the end. Only who has the grace of the Lord, he will finally realize the full truths. And Lord Krishna also advises against the vain discussions in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So these are all again re-emphasized in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavatam. Sorry, in the Uddhava Gita, Lord Krishna also advises Uddhava, don't get into unnecessary discussions, because God is to be realized by meditation and not by vain discussions. Okay, let's go to Sutra number 76. Bhakti Shastrani Mananiyani Tad Bodhaka Karmani Karaniyani. Bhakti Shastrani Mananiyani Tad Bodhaka Karmani Karaniyani. So he was giving in the previous sutras what not to do. Don't get into vain discussions, why you should not get into vain discussions. Here he is telling what to do. Read more and more Bhakti Shastras. Try to memorize them. And also Tad Bodhaka Karmani. Whatever activities was mentioned in these Bhakti Shastras, try to do those particular karmas. Tad Bodhaka Karmani Karaniyani means whatever is mentioned there or whatever is educated there, try to follow those rules. So he is telling, try to read more and more Bhakti Shastras, meditate or memorize them, see what principles they say, try to follow those principles. So that's what he is telling, because the devotee should do, what are the books we should read? Basically, there is a lot of these Puranas. That's why our sage Veda Vyasa gave us so much Puranas. Bhagavata Purana, Shiva Purana, Devi Bhagavatam, Brahmanda Purana. All those are Puranas. They are talking about the glories of the God. So these are all these Puranas. Padma Puranam, Garuda Puranam, Vishnu Puranam, all these Puranas are basically starting, so you should read more and more of those things like Bhagavatam, Vishnu Puranam, Narada Puranam, Padma Puranam, all those Puranas you should start reading more. And also the stories of the saints. There is a lot of books about Alvars, Nayanmars, all the Maharashtrian saints. You should read about all those saint stories more and more. And also about the Agamas, which teach about how to worship the Lord. So the Agamas, there is Shaiva Agama and as well as the Vaishnava Agamas. You read more about the Shaiva and Vaishnava Agama, so you know how to worship the Lord. So these are all come under the Bhakti Shastras, the Puranas, the saint stories, the Agamas and the Dharma Shastras which tell you how to do your worship and activities. You should read more and more of that. That's what says Narada is telling. And more you do all these kirtans and all these things, you will slowly get purified. So this is again a supplement to Sutras 12, 14, 49 and 62, where Narada is emphasizing on reading all these good scriptures. So now coming to Sutra number 77, it says, Sukha, Dukkha, Ichha, Labadi Tekte, Kale, Pratikshamane, Shanardam, Apivartam, Naneyam. Sukha, Dukkha, Ichha, Labadi Tekte, Kale, Pratikshamane, Shanardam, Apivartam, Naneyam. Sukha means pleasure, Dukkha means sorrow, Ichha means desire, Labha means gain. Narada is telling, give up all that, give up your aim for pleasure, give up your aim for pain, give up your other desires, try to don't work always on profit motives. So again Sukha can again means here, Sukha is pleasure could mean Sattva, Dukkha is pain can mean Tamo, Ichha is more desire could mean Rajoguna. So again the Sattva, Rajo, Tamo Guna also you should give up is indirectly what is mentioned here totally. Sukha, Dukkha, Ichha, Labadi, Tekte means give up all those things. Kale, Pratikshamane, Shanardam, Apivartam, Naneya means Shanardam means a single moment, we say half a second, millisecond, the smallest quantity of time, shanardam api vyartam. Don't waste your time on unnecessary things, spend it on useful things, on worshipping the Lord. So he says, this is the word he's emphasizing. Don't spend your time on sukha, dukkha, icha, labha, and don't keep on wasting your time on these, kale pratikshamane, but shanardam api vyartam. Don't waste your moment in unnecessary pursuits. Because if you are not vigilant, the rajo and tamoguna will start growing inside you. So you should always be vigilant. That's why he said, don't waste any moment. Otherwise the rajo and tamaguna will be growing in you, and you should spend your time profitably in good things. So the Bhagavatam and also the Bhratruharis, both Bhagavatam in Uddhava Gita and Bhratruharis Vairākya Shatakam, they clearly tell, as far as possible, start doing good even when you are young. Because when you are old, when your body is not cooperating, your mind is not cooperating, you cannot start to do these good things. Slowly start doing good things even when you are young and healthy. That's what they are emphasizing. Sutra number 78. Ahimsa, Satya, Saucha, Daya, Astikyadi, Charitriyani, Paripalaniyani. Ahimsa, Satya, Saucha, Daya, Astikyadi, Charitriyani, Paripalaniyani. He is now telling the good qualities. Ahimsa, which is non-violence. Satya, which is truth. Saucha is purity, both internal and external purity. Daya is compassion. Astikya means faith and in the God and scriptures. You should have faith in God and scriptures. All these charitriyani means all these good qualities develop in you. So he told us what and all to get rid of. Now he is telling what to gain. Ahimsa, Satya, Saucha, Daya, Astikyadi. All these good qualities slowly develop inside yourself. And you should not only, you should slowly cultivate them. Paripalaniyani means slowly cultivate, like you cultivate a crop so it grows bigger and bigger. Same way you should not only develop them but keep cultivating them and grow more and more greater. And it's very important now, there is big definitions for each of them. We have no time. But between ahimsa and daya, ahimsa means non-violence. Daya means compassion to all. So ahimsa is like what we call passive benevolence, whereas daya is active benevolence. Or active benevolence means you're actively thinking about the welfare of the people. That is daya. Ahimsa means not to injure the people, which is the negative component. I'm not injuring the people, but I'm also working for their welfare. That's what ahimsa and daya means. So same thing, these are all, good qualities, and Lord Krishna also lists all of them in the Daivasura Sampati Vibhaga Yoga, which you have to develop. Now going to the Sutra number 79. Sarvada Sarvabhavena Nischintaihi Bhagavaneva Bhajaniya. Sarvada Sarvabhavena Nischintaihi Bhagavan Eva Bhajaniya. So this is little easy to understand. Sarvada means all times. Sarva Bhavena means by all modes. Nischintai, without other thought. Bhagavan Eva Bhajaniya. You should always worship the Lord. Bhajaniya here means just not singing bhajans, all forms of worships. Only to Bhagavan alone you should be spending your time doing worships. Sarva, all times with all modes. This Sarva Bhava has a lot of meanings, and there is Bhava we call Vatsalya Bhava, Sakya Bhava, Dashya Bhava, Madhura Bhava, Shanta Bhava means the mental attitudes. That is one way of defining Bhava. All the different mental attitudes, use all your different mental attitudes to worship the God as a master, worship the God as a friend, worship the God as a divine lover, worship the God as a form of your son. So we call like Yashoda, Krishna, Yashoda, though Krishna was Paramatma, Yashoda, for Yashoda, Krishna was always son. Vallabhacharya always considered Krishna only as his son. So like all those are different, using our modes. And also other modes is using your body, mind, intellect, everything for God. With the body you are doing pradakshina to the Lord. With the mind you are meditating on the Lord. With the intellect you are analyzing the scriptures of the Lord. So this is all again using your body, mind, intellect, everything in the worship of God. So these are all could be the bhava means the different emotions, or also the different points, different things of your body. You are using all of them to worshiping the God. So that is Sutra number 79. Let's go to Sutra number 80. Sakirtyamanaha Shigrameva Avirbhavati Anubhavayati Bhaktan. Sakirtyamanaha Shigrameva Avirbhavati Anubhavayati Bhaktan. So what Sri Narada is telling is, for this devotee who is doing all these things like with Sarvabhava and Sarvada. Sarvabhava means all time with all modes. You are worshipping the Lord. For that particular person, Shigram Eva Avir Bhavati means the Lord will appear much faster for him. Shigram Eva Avir Bhavati means he will manifest for him fast. Anubhavati will also give him the experience of the God. So he will manifest for him real quick, and he will also give the experience of the God realization for this Bhakta. So one who is following all these things, we know for Lord, how the Lord Vishnu appeared in the pillar for Prahlada. So Prahlada was so devoted to the Lord, so Lord Vishnu appeared in the form from the pillar for him like Narsimha. So he came very fast for Prahlada. Same thing we hear the Kannapar story, the hunter for which Lord Shiva appeared from the Shivalinga right away for him. So like for these great devotees, the Lord appears in front of them. And not only that, he gives the God experience for them, what we call the Brahma Jnana they get. So they not only see the God, but they also get the Brahma Jnana. And Lord Krishna also says the same thing. For the person who is very devoted to him, he gives him the discriminating intellect for the devotees by which they attain him. He said Buddhi Yogam. I give them the Buddhi Yogam by which they attain to me. And he also used the term Jnana Deepam. Jnana Deepam means flame of knowledge. Deepam is light. Jnana means knowledge. The knowledge of light, I actually stay inside their heart and I give them the flame of knowledge, Tejomayam. So he gives the Lord acts as a light, like your heart is full of darkness. He says, I light the lamp of knowledge inside their heart. So even Krishna emphasizes that in Bhagavad Gita, that he gives them the flame of knowledge for these real devotees. And now coming to the sutras 81 to 84, this is the final, almost the parashrutis of this. So 81 says, Trisatyasya Bhaktireva Gariyasi, Bhaktireva Gariyasi. So says Narada is in Sutra number 81, Trisatyasya Bhaktireva Gariyasi, Bhaktireva Gariyasi. Gariyasi means the greatest, or it is the most weightiest. So Bhakti is the greatest, Bhakti is the greatest. That is what says Narada is emphasizing in Sutra number 81, Bhaktireva Gariyasi means. And even Adi Shankara will use the same word Gariyasi in his Viveka Chudamani. This Bhakti, so Sasarupa Anusantanam is the most important thing you used to say, which is the Gariyasi, the most important thing or the most greatest thing. So Trisatyasya means on the three truths. Trisatya means three truths. Again, these three truths are interpreted in different ways by different acharyas. We don't want to get into that, but you can assume that in all I am in the three form of truths we call Paramarthika Satya, Vyavaharika Satya, Pratibhashika Satya. Whatever truth you look at, in all forms of truth, Bhakti is the greatest, Bhakti is the greatest. So that's what he is telling there. Coming to Sutra number 82, this is a little big sutra, but it's very easy to understand. Guna Mahatmya Shakti, Rupa Shakti, Puja Shakti, Smarana Shakti, Dashya Shakti, Sakya Shakti, Vatsalya Shakti, Kanta Shakti, Atma Nivedana Shakti, Tanmaya Shakti, Parama Viraha Shakti, Rupa Aikyada, Api Eka Dashada Bhavati. So he says Guna Mahatmya Shakti, Rupa Shakti, Puja Shakti, Smarana Shakti, Dashya Shakti, Sakya Shakti, Vatsalya Shakti, Kanta Shakti, Atma Nivedana Shakti, Tanmaya Shakti, Parama Viraha Shakti, Rupa Aikyada Api Eka Dashada Bhavati. He says Rupa Aikyada means Bhakti is only one. Rupa Aikyada means Bhakti is actually one. Api Eka Dashada Bhavati means, but it manifests in 11 forms. So it is only one Bhakti. For example, water. Water, when it heat, it becomes water vapor. When you cool water, it becomes ice. It's only the same water, but it can manifest as ice. It can manifest as water vapor. It can manifest as just pure water. Same way, Bhakti is only one, but it can manifest in 11 different ways. Ekadasha means 11. And that 11 forms is displayed in the Guna Mahatmya means for some, they always want to hear the greatness of the Lord. Rupa Shakti means form. They always want to have darshan of the Lord. Puja Shakti means they always want to worship the Lord. Smarana Shakti means they always want to think about or meditate on the Lord. Dasya means they always want to be a servant to the Lord. Sakya means they want to be a friend of the Lord. Vatsalya means they want to treat the God as their son. Kanta means they want to treat the God as their divine lover. Atma Nivedana means they want to just offer everything to the Lord. Tanmaya means they become like God themselves. And Parama Viraha Shakti means they have so much agony if they get separated from the Lord. So these are the 11 different forms of how bhakti manifests. And there is an example of all of this. Like Vyasa, Shuka and Valmiki, they were always indulged in singing the glories of Lord. The Dandakaranya Rishis and the Brindavana Gopis, they always want to see the Lord. The Ambarisha and Prithu and Lakshmi, they always want to worship the Lord. Prahalada and the Alvars always want to think about the Lord. Hanuman and Akrura wanted to serve the Lord. Arjuna, Uddhava and Guha wanted to treat the Lord as their friend. Kaushalya, Devaki, Yashoda wanted to treat the Lord as their son. Sita, Rukmini and all treated the Lord as their lover. Mahabali, Vibhishana all offered everything to the Lord. And Sanakadi Rishis always become one with the God. And the Radha and Gopikas, they cannot even bear separation from the Lord for 1 minute. So these are all examples of all the 11 forms of bhakti. That is Sutra number 82. So one form, bhakti is one, but it can manifest in different 11 forms. Let's go to Sutra number 83. Ityevam vadanti jana jalpa nirbayaha ekamataha kumara vyasa shuka sandilya gharga vishnu kaundilya shesha uddhava aruni Bali, Hanumad, Vibhishana Adayo, Bhakta Acharyaha. So here our Narada is telling the opinion of all the other Acharyas. Ityevam Vadanti Jana Jalpa Nirbayaha Ekamataha Kumara Vyasa Shuka Shandilya Garga Vishnu Kaundilya Sesha Uddhava Aruni Bali Hanumad Vibhishana Adayo, Bhakta Acharyaha. He says these 13 Acharyas. Kumara means Sanat Kumara, Vyasa is Vyasa Rishi, Shuka is Shuka Rishi, Shandilya Rishi, Garga Rishi, Vishnu Rishi, Kaundilya Rishi, Shesha is Adi Shesha, the serpent, Uddhava is Uddhava, Aruni is the Uddalaka Aruni, Bali is Mahabali, and Hanuman is Lord Hanuman, and Vibhishana is King Vibhishana. These 13 Acharyas are the great Bhakti, they are the role models. He is giving, these are the 13 people who are role models for Bhakti. I am only telling the same opinion what they are telling. See, Narada's opinion is making himself very humble. Though Narada himself was the greatest, he himself was the one who instructed Vyasa, Valmiki, everything, but he is now telling these are the 13 role models for Bhakti. I am only propounding in one word, Ekamataha, whatever these people told, and these people are Jana Jalpa Nirbhaya, means they have no fear of anything. They are fearless because of their devotion to the Lord. So they have expressed their opinion very clearly. These great 13 people, whatever they express, that is the same thing only I have expressed in all these sutras. So he is being very humble and telling nothing of this is my opinion. It is all the opinion of these great acharyas. And then the final sutra is 84. Yahidam Narada Proktam Shiva Anushasanam Vishwashiti Saddate Sa Bhaktiman Bhavati Sa Preshtam Labate iti. Yahidam Narada Proktam Shiva Anushasanam Vishwashiti Sraddate Sa Bhaktiman Bhavati Sa Preshtam Labate. So Narada says, whoever reads this, Narada Proktam, Shiva Anushasanam means Shiva is Lord Shiva, or Shiva can also mean auspicious. Whoever reads this, he again telling these are all Shiva Anushasanam means these are all the dictates of Lord Shiva. You can take that word, or this is auspicious teachings. Narada's teachings, which are dictates of Lord Shiva, and who is also very auspicious, Vishwasiti Sraddate, one who has faith on these teachings and follows these teachings regularly, Sa Bhaktiman Bhavati, he will become a great Bhakta. Sa Preshtam Labate means he will attain the beloved, Labate means gain. Preshtam means the beloved Lord. He will get the Lord himself. He will get the Lord. So he repeats it twice. So whoever follows these auspicious teachings of Lord Narada, sage Narada, which are the dictates of Lord Shiva, that person who is following with faith, he will become a great Bhakta and he will attain the Lord. He will attain the Lord. He is giving assurance for that. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Mangalam Koshalendraya Mahaniya Gunatyam Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam Shriyak Kantaya Kalyananide Artinam Shri Venkata Nivasaya Srinivasaya Mangalam.